Coming up on Network Africa, leaders from African countries and France attend the 27th France-Africa Summit in Mali. Algeria marks the Armed Forces Remembrance Day with wreath laying and prayers made to honor the fallen soldiers. And Pope Francis says child migrants must be protected and defended, as well as integrated into their new communities. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Temi Tokwe Fagbemi. We begin today's program in Mali, where leaders and officials from some 30 African countries gathered in the capital Bamako this weekend for the 27th Africa-France Summit. The main focus of the summit was on security and development to reduce the migration flows into Europe. Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta welcomed leaders, saying his country is standing up once again, a claim backed by the French President François Hollande. France launched a military operation in 2013 to push back Islamic militants who a year earlier had hijacked an ethnic Tuareg uprising in the north of the country. The intervention received support from Mali's regional neighbors, including Côte d'Ivoire, which hosts a French military base. But while the operation drove the insurgents from urban strongholds, Islamists are still present in northern Mali, from where they have spread instability into neighboring countries. Meanwhile, French President François Hollande says that the Gambia's presidential election results must be respected. This comes as African leaders met with Gambia's president-elect Adama Barrow in Mali during the France-Africa Summit. Meanwhile, incumbent President Yahya Jammeh has filed an injunction to prevent Adama Barrow from taking office on Thursday. Mr. Jammeh, who is contesting his defeat in last month's presidential election, also said that the date of January 19 for his mandate to come to an end is not carved in stone.
President François Hollande said on Saturday, January 14, during the France-Africa Summit in Mali, that the Gambian presidential election results must be respected. Leaders and officials from some 30 African countries gathered in the capital Bamako on Saturday for the start of the 27th Africa-France Summit, which focused mainly on security and development to reduce the migration flows into Europe. After the summit, Hollande and ECOWAS leaders met with Gambian President-elect Adama Barrow. We discussed specific situations, particularly what is happening in Gambia. Elections were held that were considered credible and transparent, and therefore the election result must be respected. You have seen that the president-elect was welcomed at this summit, and everything must be done so that on January 18 or January 19, he is able to effectively take up his new role. And ECOWAS wanted to meet in parallel with this summit to reinforce this result. Gambia's President Jammeh, whose authoritarian rule began after the 1994 coup, lost the December 1 election to businessman Barrow by a slim margin. He initially considered defeat, but a week later contested the result and called for another poll. He now refuses to give up power, but Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta hopes that Jammeh will change his mind come the day his mandate officially ends. We laid down our fort. We have by common accord received President Barrow here, which is a de facto recognition, and on the 19th of January, the day Barrow is to be sworn in, I dare to hope that proverbial African wisdom will inspire our brother Yahya.
La sagesse africaine proverbiale inspirera notre frère Yahya.
The question of whether Gambia can install Barrow as president is seen as a test case for African democracy in a region accustomed to coups and autocratic rule. Jammeh's mandate runs out on January 18, after which Barrow plans to be sworn in.
Well, let's get more on the France-Africa Summit from a former Nigerian ambassador to France and Monaco, Ambassador Akin Fayomi. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
So what impact do you expect the summit in Mali to have on security in Africa and the continent's economic growth?
Well, as you know, this French Africa Summit is not a new thing. It's been on since 1973, and we've had a lot of ups and downs, even in terms of relations with France. I mean, I'm talking Africa now. But this particular one, as you have very much captured in your news clip, you know, the issue of security was number one on the list. That, of course, is to be expected, what with terrorism and ISIS and all that. In terms of the peace and security issues, yes, France has been helping Africa. They have been enjoying good partnership with them, and I think that will continue even after President Hollande. The economic issues also is on the table. I mean, they just signed a 23 billion euros investment fund. And in fact, an Africa-French investment foundation is going to be established so that a lot of development can be had here with the help of the French Republic.
Now, the political crisis in the Gambia was also one of the issues that came up for discussion in Mali, with the African leaders insisting that President Jammeh must hand over power on Thursday. Ambassador, how do you think this will play out, with President Jammeh already seeking a court injunction to prevent Adama Barrow's inauguration from taking place?
As you mentioned, the court injunction is there, but that cannot hold sway. As you very well know, the Supreme Court in Gambia does not have the quorum. It's actually the Chief Justice, who, by the way, is a Nigerian. But then you need a quorum of about 5-6 judges, and that cannot happen now. Therefore, the president, that is Jammeh, can continue his appeal to the Supreme Court after the swearing in. It's not new. Our own president here in Nigeria, as you know very well, contested the presidency that he lost about 3 times at the Supreme Court. So even governors do contest up to Supreme Court. It doesn't stop them from being inaugurated and being sworn in. So we expect that President Jammeh must step down, even though, like you say, he took center stage in Bamako. But then, you know, the ECOWAS as well as the AU and the international community, they're all looking and watching. And in the next 2 days, things will crystallize. But definitely, using the way of justice, using the way of the courts as an excuse will not be condoned.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens on Thursday. Now, Ambassador, ahead of the summit in Mali, some analysts criticize the French government's failure to scale down alliances with strongman leaders like Chad's Idriss Déby. Now, does France have the moral right to tell President Yahya Jammeh to step down when it is still fraternizing with other sit-tight African leaders?
Thank you very much. That's a very pertinent question. As you know, sometimes realities are quite different from what is on the books. You know, we know, but France has no choice but to fraternize with any leader that is ready to conform to the dictates of peace and security. Yes, Déby's been there for so many years, and Gabon and the rest of them. But the point is that we are fighting terrorism. France was fighting terrorism and is still fighting terrorism, even on its own soil. And then apart from its intervention in Africa here, particularly in West Africa, Hollande had no choice but to consult with all leaders, particularly when you are ready and you are able to give all the necessary support in the fight of terrorism. I think without peace and security, there cannot be development. So sometimes you need to dine with the devil, you know, before you can actually get to where you want to go. The important thing is to achieve a goal, achieve an objective, irrespective of whom you stop with. You know, I think that's the whole idea.
Well, finally, Ambassador, this is the last Africa-France summit for Francois Hollande as the French president. What are some of his legacies that Africa will remember him for?
Thank you very much. I'm not so sure we can say Mr. Hollande has left a very lasting legacy, but one or two issues, one or two areas, particularly in terms of security, he has helped Africa in terms of security, in terms of fighting terrorism. You know, the intervention of the French in Côte d'Ivoire, you know, the intervention in Mali, intervention in the Central African Republic, and so on. You know, he's been a very forthright warrior, in quotes, if I might say. And for that, we should be grateful. Also, he has tried to improve on economic relations with Africa. He's one of the presidents, France, that has actually done that. He has seen to that. Even this trip that he went in Bamako, but 60 French heads of companies that went with him. So it was not just peace and security, it was also economic development and the growth of Africa. So we can say that he was a friend of Africa. I'm sorry I'm using the past tense. He still is there, but he did his last for me. So he is a friend of Africa. He has done his bit, and we just hope that the next president of France will build on this foundation and see that Africa-French relations become more solid and move forward.
Ambassador Kifayemi, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.